Now I'm going to put my glasses on. Deployments include serving as Infantry Battalion Intelligence Officer in Operation Desert Storm and as a senior military officer on the NATO advisory team to the Kosovo Security Ministry. Now, closer to home, Steve assisted as State Intelligence Officer during the Iowa flood of 2008 and as Commanding General during the Cedar Rapids floods of 2008 and as Commanding General during the Cedar Rapids flood of 2016. Boy, that's pretty impressive, isn't it? Few public officials can boast such an impressive record of service to both local community and country. For this reason, we are honored to award the Harry Hopkins Award for outstanding service to Honorable General Senator Steve Warnstedt.
Thank you, Jackie. I have to thank, frankly, I'm going to thank a lot of folks. I want to thank, first of all, my parents. I honestly would not have gotten elected. Steve Warnstedt did not get elected in 1994. It was Steve and Jackie Warnstedt's son that got elected in 1994, and that needs to be clear. Not only did they help mold me and shape me, help guide me, but they were very active in my campaign. They were effectively my treasurer. They were my campaign coordinator. I need to thank my wife because I was gone a lot between the National Guard, between the legislature. The Warnstedt household would not have operated. I would not have been able to do the things that I did if it weren't for Mary's support, answering a lot of phone calls from a lot of constituents and doing a heck of a great job. So thank you to both. To the extent that I was an effective legislator, I have to think I had great role models and guides, and particularly Al Sturgeon, Steve Hansen, helped provide guidance for me to become an effective legislator. And I was also assisted very early on by people like Pat Gill, Lauren Callender, Leo Miller, who took a chance on this guy who was only 27 years old running for state office. Didn't know a lot about me, but took a chance on me and supported me. That, in turn, was due in large support to another person or two people I need to thank. Betty and Daryl Strong, Jackie's parents. I definitely would not be in the position. Betty was a tremendous advocate and a guide for me, and Daryl took every single photo that ever appeared in one of my locally produced materials. I'm not going to name check everybody, but I also need to thank every county chair, every county secretary, treasurer of the Woodbury County Democratic Party, because they did the hard work of getting the structure in place for candidates to be able to be successful. I thank them for what they did to help make me successful, but in particular, I want to thank all of the volunteers in all of the different ways. The generals get the accolades for the military operations, but it's the soldiers who do the work. The CEOs get the credits for the companies doing great things, but it's the people on the shop floor and behind the cash register who really make things work. And the candidates get a lot of the credit, but it's the volunteers, people who are willing to call up their friends, put up yard signs, make food, host volunteers. All of that work makes a huge difference. Never, ever underestimate how important that is. The party is not the candidates. The party is its people. And thank you for all of the work that you did for me and for every other candidate who's ever run. And I'll just say, it's been a long, strange road from the Evergreen Village Trailer Court in Sioux City to the deserts of Saudi Arabia, senior military advisor in Kosovo, responding to floods and disasters across the state of Iowa. But I take the greatest pride in the fact of being a Sioux City native and having the trust and confidence of the people of Sioux City being their voice, being entrusted with being their voice is truly, the greatest honor that I've had in a public capacity. I have stepped out of Sioux City. There will always be a part of me, and I'm proud to have pushed the cause of making this society more just, more fair, more equitable for all people. Thank you very much.
Please welcome IDP District 4 Organizer, Katrin Sneed.
Great. So my name is Katrin Sneed, and I am your District Organizing Director in the 4th Congressional District with the Iowa Democratic Party. So basically what that means is I work in the 39 counties that are currently represented by Steve King, but we're all going to change that, right? So the 2020 caucus is coming up, which is incredibly exciting. And across the board, in all 39 counties, we are seeing people get organized earlier than they ever had. And we are seeing communities get involved that in the past have been disenfranchised or haven't been as much a part of this process. That's fantastic. That also means we're going to have record turnout in precincts all across Iowa. It's great to have this record turnout, and I think we can really trust that it's going to happen because we have fantastic field staff working here who are incredibly dedicated to their candidate, who are incredibly talented, and are working very hard. So we can count on these large numbers. But to make that work, we need to be prepared. And we need to make sure we are ready and we have enough volunteers on caucus night who are going to make this a positive experience. So basically, we need you. I am not asking anyone to run their entire caucus precinct on their own. I'm not asking you to completely organize it, but we need you to work the voter registration table. So when people come for the very first time to caucus, they have a friendly face from their community who's going to help them get ready to go into that caucus room. We need you to show up a few minutes early to help us set up the folding table so the room makes sense. This may seem small, but this is incredibly important because if we can provide an accessible, efficient, positive experience to all of these new members of our community who are coming out to caucus, they'll come back. And that's how we're going to win in the general and take this over the finish line. If we have 5 more phone bankers in every precinct and 5 more people knocking on doors and talking to their neighbors, that's how we get rid of Donald Trump, and that's how we get rid of Steve King. So, if you're going to be in town, and I hope you will be, because we need you to caucus on February 3rd, please reach out to Jeremy Dunkrieger, our chair, and let us know how you want to be a part of our team. I'm also going to be out in the lobby, and I would love to talk to you about everything that's going on across the 4th District. Thanks so much, everyone.
A slight change to our schedule. Please welcome Pulitzer Prize award-winning writer, Art Cohen.
Do I see?
I love Willie, don't you? Well, thanks for having me tonight, and I want to thank the 3 presidential candidates who are here tonight. We do appreciate your being here because, you know, out here in King Country, it does get a little lonely. Please excuse me, I'm leaning on written remarks. People might be listening, and I want to get this right, so bear with me. It may seem extraordinary that a newspaper man is speaking at a political event, but these are extraordinary times. The Republic is shaking at its foundations. A free and independent press is under siege, labeled an enemy of the people, the same totalitarian language that Hitler and Stalin used. This goes beyond partisanship. This is about patriotism. Nobody from the Woodbury County Democratic or Republican parties have paid me to be here, unfortunately. I'm here only because of the stakes involved in our politics today. But I do have a dozen books to sell outside afterwards, and I appreciate, just to show I am indeed a transactional hack. It also seems natural for me to be here with you tonight. I am who I am, an Irish Catholic Democrat from the middle of nowhere, whose dad ran for legislature on the Kennedy ticket when there were still cross burnings in Buena Vista County. Dad lost, but he got more votes than Kennedy in Storm Lake. His consolation prize was a job as a federal crop insurance agent before they handed it over to the Farm Bureau and the Hale agents, putting the fox in charge of the hen house. And Jack Miller and Wiley Main spent the better part of their careers trying their damnedest to get him fired, but he was the top salesman in the country, so they couldn't get it done. And that's how I come by my politics, honestly. For the past 2 decades, probably nobody has been more strident about Representative Steve King than the Storm Lake Times. It started with his nominating convention in Denison when I witnessed a new right-wing coalition driven by abortion, homophobia, immigration, and guns just after the Clinton era. This was not your Fred Grandy crowd. We came out immediately thereafter with our anti-endorsement of Steve King. We said we didn't care who was running, anyone would do but King. And I would add, we were alone. Of course, King won. He became John the Baptist of the new right wing, wandering the desert of anti-immigrant, white nationalist, hokum ditch digger philosophy. He paved the way for the most corrupt, banal, and lying politician in the history of the United States, Donald Trump. And their due date is coming. That's because our friend, J.D. Scholten, the bachelor driving Sioux City Sioux, who still has a fastball, is motoring uphill en route to an historic victory next year. It's a shame he couldn't be here tonight. He's at a close friend's wedding out west, I think in Seattle, and I hope he comes back with a bag full of that San Francisco money. Why do I think he will win? Let's go back to Richard Nixon. His burglars broke into the office of our former Congressman, Stan Gregg, at the Watergate complex where Gregg served as vice chairman of the Democratic National Committee. Thanks to the Washington Post, let me remind you, the rest is history. Nixon was exposed as a liar and, yes, a crook. Our congressman, Wiley Main of Sioux City, was Nixon's staunchest offender in the House as impeachment approached. 2 years earlier, a man who made a fortune tying fishing flies, Berkeley Bedell of Spirit Lake, ran against Maine because he could afford to. Nobody thought he would win. Although he was a little awkward, everybody took a natural liking to Bert. He was honest and decent. As the Watergate hearings progressed, Maine stood by his man. By 1974, the people of Iowa were fed up with the lying, the contempt Nixon held for Congress and the people, and with Wiley Maine's blind loyalty. Berkeley Bedell ran again and won on his second try. He did what was thought to be impossible. Fast forward to now. Rural Iowa is worse off than it was 20 years ago. We have fewer people and prospects. Ethanol plants are closing. Soybean markets are evaporating. And Steve King is drinking out of toilets at cruel, inhumane, and illegal detention camps along the border, packing children in like hogs in confinement. He's been stripped of his committee assignments by the Republican bosses for saying things that we at the Storm Lake Times have been reporting for the last 20 years, and the same things that Donald Trump parrots every day. King has tied himself to Trump's hip. He now has 4 challengers in a Republican primary. The most prominent, Randy Feenstra of Hull, also stands squarely with Trump. King will win that primary, I predict, because the base I saw in Denison 2 decades ago still loves him and believes in him, no matter what he or Trump say or do. J.D. Scholten will face Steve King in November 2020, I think. And I think Scholten will win for the same reasons Bedell did. Iowans are fed up with lies based on fear. You hear it every day if you listen. People know what Trump and King represent, and Trump will be impeached as just for it as Nixon almost was. And Steve King will finally get his comeuppance. J.D. nearly did it last time, and without any help from the Democratic establishment in D.C. This time, even the Beltway Democrats are with Scholten. The Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, for the first time, has thrown its support behind the Democrat. And we might even get a little money from Des Moines. If you can do that, if we can do that, beat Steve King, everything else takes care of itself. Let Joni Ernst vote against impeachment and run on that. There are 4 people in the room who will put her out of a job. There's a lesson the National Democratic Party has a hard time learning. If you win Northwest Iowa, you win the nation. It happened in 1974 with the Watergate wave that blew Berkeley Bedell and Tom Harkin into long and distinguished careers in Congress. Their performance in Western Iowa helped John Culver from Eastern Iowa narrowly win an open U.S. Senate seat. In 1976, Northwest Iowa helped vault a little-known peanut farmer named Jimmy Carter into the White House. History is instructive. Northwest Iowa matters. You good people take care of the 4th District, and everything else will take care of itself. That's my message tonight. Our republic is at stake, so let's not blow it. Thank you.
Speaking on behalf of Joe Biden, please welcome Senator Tom Carper. Hello, Iowa. Let's hear for the Democrats. I never want to follow that guy again in my life. Who put him ahead of me? I wouldn't want to run against him either. I knew Berkeley. I served with him, served with Tom Harkin, loved Tom. We're both Navy guys and Vietnam veterans. And we're thrilled to be here. I'm here with my wife, Martha. Martha, stand up. Give her a nice round of applause. Martha Carper. Martha and I have been married 33 years, 8 months, 24 days, 17 hours, 12 minutes. We were married 1 minute after midnight on New Year's Day, 33 years ago. Martha says the happiest 4 years of her life. Do I have anybody here who's married? Anybody here married 10 years? Anybody married 20? Do I hear 30? 40? 50? 60? The same person. 70? We'll stop at 60. I always ask people who've been married a long time, what is the secret for being married a long time? I get hilarious answers. I get some serious answers too. Among my favorites are, he can be right or he can be happy. He cannot be both. And I met a guy who was once married in Las Vegas, Chapel of Love. Been married 47 years. I said, what's the secret? You know, I didn't know until after 47 weeks, much less 47 months. He gave me great advice. He said, when you know you are wrong, admit it. When you know you're right, let it go. Let it go. And we have, Del's a big farm state. We don't raise so many pigs, we raise chickens. And if for every person who lives in Del, there's 1 million of us, we have about 300 chickens. And for the folks who picked out the menu tonight, thank you for including chicken. That's our favorite. We're the first state to ratify the Constitution. But when it comes to nominating presidents, choosing presidents, you are the first state because it all starts right here. And I just want to say, serving in the U.S. Senate, I've been governor, I've been senator, treasurer, retired Navy captain, Vietnam veteran, last Vietnam veteran serving in the U.S. Senate. And I know just about everybody's running. There's a bunch of great people, a bunch of my colleagues. We call them the presidentials. We call them the presidentials. But I want to say, any one of them would be a better president than Donald Trump. Any one of them. Just recognized your former adjutant general, and who's one of Joe Biden's most honored military people. Our adjutant general, Delaware, Frank Vapple, asked me to please be sure to tell Steve congratulations. And I just want to talk a little bit tonight about leadership. Let me talk about leadership. The most important ingredient in the success of any organization I've ever been a part of, I don't care if it's a state, a nation, a business, a church, a school, it's always leadership. Always leadership. Leaders are humble, not haughty. Leaders have the heart of a servant. Their job is to serve, not be served. Leaders lead by our example. It's not do as I say, it's rather do as I do. Leaders unite, not divide. Leaders build bridges, not walls. Leaders do not build themselves up by tearing other people down. Leaders are purveyors of hope. Camus used to say, leaders are purveyors of hope. Leaders are not afraid to stay out of step when everybody else is marching to the wrong tune. And leaders treat other people where they want to be treated. Leaders do what is right, not what is easy or expedient, but what is right. Leaders surround themselves with the best team they can find. They focus on excellence in everything they do. When the team falls short, the leader takes the blame. And when leaders know they're right, they're sure they're right, they don't give up. They don't give up. I stand before you today, sadly. It's not my first time in Iowa. Joe Biden's run 3 times. I've been here with him every time. He can't be here tonight. He sends his best and his love and his thanks for the folks that have supported him, not once, not twice, but 3 times. I tell him, my mom used to say the 3rd time is a charm. And this is the 3rd time. And my hope and prayer is that this will be for him and for our country. God knows we need a leader like that. We need a leader like Joe who will frankly say, when you got in the country today, 4 million people, 4 million jobs are not going to be filled. 157 million are going to be filled, 4 million will not. And the reason why is because the folks showing up for those jobs don't have the education, they don't have the skills, the experience, the training to do those jobs. Joe Biden says we can do something about that. We can do it with our community colleges, our technical colleges. We can do it with pathway programs, our high schools. We can do it with apprentice programs and our unions. But we can do something about that, and he will. The idea, have anybody ever met Joe Biden? Joe Biden. Talk about a guy marrying up. People think I'm married up. Talk about it. Boy, the idea of having a woman, a distinguished educator, high school, community college, technical college, she still teaches, author, Dr. Joe Biden, to have somebody like that beside the president, helping to develop and really encourage the things that we do in education to prepare the workforce, would that be good or what? Or that would be good. We still, we produce 1 minute to go. 1 minute to go. Let me just conclude in the last minute to say this. Whether it's making sure that people have the health care that they need and deserve, whether it's making sure that we not just feed ourselves, but fuel ourselves with what we grow in our fields and farms, whether it's going after climate change in ways, so many ways, where we actually create economic opportunity, not just save our planet, but create economic opportunity, to say that we can do both. Go ahead. We can do both. We can do both, and we should do both. And lastly, I'll say this, golden rule, Matthew 25, I'll close with Matthew 25. Matthew 25 says, when people are hungry, we should feed them. When people are naked, we should clothe them. When people are thirsty, we should give them to drink. The Bible doesn't say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. People have an obligation to help themselves. And we as Democrats and Republicans have to find cost-effective ways to help people help themselves. And if we do, then I can leave the stage, knowing that Joe Biden is going to be the next president of our country. Thank you all. God bless you. Thank you.
Please welcome former Congressman, candidate for President, John Delaney. Let's hear it for the great senator from Delaware. I'm going to stand where the senator stood because I bet he figured it out perfectly as to the best place to stand. Thank you, Senator. Nice to see you. You know, politicians in Delaware are just terrific. The governor of Delaware, John Carney, was my best friend in the House of Representatives, and he's doing a great job, another great Democrat. It's great to be back with you all this weekend. I missed last weekend. I missed the famous steak fry, which I felt bad about, but I had a very good excuse. My oldest daughter got married. I have 4 daughters, and so when your first child gets married, some of you have walked your daughter down the aisle like I did last weekend. It's an amazing experience, and it was a beautiful service. It was done in a cathedral, and an Episcopal reverend conducted this service, but we also had a priest and a rabbi. This isn't a joke, actually. A lot of people said, you walk into a room. The joke actually comes from a priest and a reverend and a rabbi walk into a bar, and the bartender looks at them and says, "What is this, a joke?" But so it was a beautiful ceremony. It was an interfaith ceremony, and it was just a reminder to all of us who were there how it's not that hard for us to all get along. So it really was a blessing for us. It was a blessing for all of those in attendance. So after listening to the great Art Cullen, I've decided to change what I was going to comment on today, because I thought he made a terrific point. I've always said the person who wins Iowa will in fact win the presidency almost by definition. If you nominate someone who you believe can win the state of Iowa, almost by definition that person's going to win the presidency. And Art Cullen talked about how fed up Iowans are with the corruption that we see every day in Washington. But there's another thing that they're fed up with that we should talk about, which is this trade war. Because I believe as a party, we can win the 2020 election on trade, because you know what it's doing to rural Iowa. Every acre of farmland in this state is worth less because of Trump's trade war. But it has broader implications. Several weeks ago, we watched as the Amazon burned. You all remember seeing those images on television. They call it the lungs of the world. But you may not realize that rural Iowa and the Amazon have something in common, and that is they are each victims of Trump's trade war. Because China is the largest buyer of soybeans in the world. They used to buy those soybeans from where? The United States of America. And Iowa was a main producer. But they're not doing that anymore. Why? Because we're in a pointless trade war without a strategy. So what are farmers in Brazil doing? They're burning forests to clear the land to grow soybeans to sell them to China. My point in telling you this story is we have to remember that everything is interconnected and we're all interdependent upon each other. And it's something that's very important for us to remember as Democrats, because even though we're in very dark times right now, we have a lawless and reckless president who is about to go through an impeachment inquiry, which has to happen, but make no mistake about it, it will terribly divide our country. We see literally millions of young people around the world go to the streets to protest against climate change. Why? Because the generation in power is not doing anything about it. We're leaving our kids debts they cannot repay. 40% of the American people can't afford their basic necessities, their housing, their food, their utilities. In many ways, these are very dark times. But on the other hand, the world gets better every single day. 50 years ago, 60% of the world lived in poverty. Today, that number is down to 10%. That's literally billions of human beings getting lifted out of poverty, and every year, the rate of extreme poverty goes down. The number of people around the world who live in hunger goes down. The number of children who are forced to do child labor goes down. Life expectancies are being extended. We have technological innovations that have fundamentally transformed our lives. So how do we live in a world where things seem so dark, yet at the same time things are so positive? The point here is that all of these things are interconnected and interrelated. And our next president needs to be someone who tells the American people the truth about these things. Because the senator talked about leadership. One of the most core foundational principles of leadership is telling the American people the truth. And if we tell the American people the truth, we will win. If we tell the American people that, yes, we do live in an interconnected and interdependent world, and the U.S. has to lead, they understand that, and we will win. If we do explain to the American people how many of our fellow citizens are suffering, truly suffering economically, and that those people need real solutions, not impossible promises, not fairy tale economics, but things that actually can get done, like doubling the earned income tax credit, which is the most successful anti-poverty program we have in this country. As president, I plan on doubling it, which will expand it to 14 million more people and give the average recipient another $1,500. That will actually make a difference in the lives of our citizens, and it can get done. We absolutely should have a universal healthcare system in this country, but we shouldn't take away people's choices. We should be investing in the next generation of innovation. We stand at the threshold of extraordinary breakthroughs in life sciences and energy research, but it won't happen without investments. These are the truths that need to be told. But the other truth that needs to be told is that Donald Trump is the symptom of a disease. And we not only have to beat him, which is the most important thing for us to do in 2020, and the way to beat him is to capture the center, capture those independent voters that we captured in 2018 and gave us the House of Representatives. But we also have to cure the disease, and the disease is divisiveness, where the American people are increasingly pitted against each other, where we have a president who tells the American people that their enemy is their fellow American. This has to change. We've had decades of inaction and incivility, and we need to get back to those roots that this country and the tree of liberty and freedom grew from in the sunlight of the cause we're fighting for, which is the fact that we're all in this together. And that, my friends, is why I'm running for president. I want to thank you for having me. Let's go get him in 2020. Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage, entrepreneur, Andrew Yang.
Hello, Iowa! It's great to be back. Thank you, Woodbury County Democrats. This is the place to be in the entire country right now.
Why? Because you are here. It does not feel like it, but you are among the most powerful people in the country. 238 Iowans together right now. Do you know how many Californians each of you is worth? I did the math, Iowa. Each of you is worth 1,000 Californians. This group of Iowans is the room you can launch a revolution from. This is 5 football stadiums worth of Californians right here. That's why I'm here. That's why the other presidential candidates are here. Because you have the future of the country in your hands. You're a little spoiled by it. You're like, don't know about that Yang guy, just met him the one time. But you've earned it because you take the responsibility so seriously. And the responsibility you have is this: to answer the question that our country's been struggling with now for over 2.5 years, and it's why Donald Trump is our president today. Why did Donald Trump win Iowa by 9 points? Why do all of you have friends and neighbors who voted for him? For that matter, why did he win Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Missouri? If you turned on cable news, why would you think he's our president today? Russia, racism, Facebook, Hillary Clinton, the FBI, emails, all mashed together into a really dark cocktail. But I'm a numbers guy, and the numbers tell a very clear and distinct story that is not those things. The numbers tell us that the reason why Donald Trump is our president today is that we automated away 4 million manufacturing jobs in Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and 40,000 right here in Iowa. There's a straight line up between the adoption of industrial automation and the movement towards Donald Trump. And you have all seen it in your own communities. I know you have. It started at your farms and moved to your factories. And now, how many of you have noticed stores closing around where you work and live here in Iowa? Why are your stores closing? One word answer. Amazon, that's right. Amazon's sucking up $20 billion in business each year out of your communities. How much did Amazon pay in taxes last year? Zero. That is your math, Iowa. 20 billion out, 0 back. Most common job in most of the country is working as a retail clerk. The average retail clerk is a 39-year-old woman making between $9 and $11 an hour. When her store closes, what is her next move going to be? When you all call the customer service line of a big company and you get the bot on the other end, you probably do the same thing I do, which is you pound 000 human to get someone on the line. Raise your hand if that's what you do. Yeah, we all do it. But in 2 or 3 short years, the software is going to sound like this. Hey, Andrew, how's it going? What can I do for you? It'll be helpful, delightful, efficient, a little bit seductive, apparently. But what is that going to mean for the 2.5 million Americans who answer a phone for a living right now that make $14 an hour? It's another common job here in the state. I spoke to a group of 70 CEOs in New York City. I asked how many of them are looking at getting rid of their back office clerical workers. Guess how many hands went up out of 70? All 70. We're in the midst of the greatest economic transformation in the history of our country, what experts are calling the 4th industrial revolution. When is the last time you heard a politician say the words 4th industrial revolution? Just now. And I'm barely a politician. So these are the facts on the ground that you see more clearly than most other Americans. And you have to take a vision for an economy that works for us to the rest of the country as quickly as possible. That is your power. That is your responsibility. So the question is, what is that vision? If you heard anything about me and my campaign, you heard something like this at some point. There's an Asian man running for president who wants to give every American $1,000 a month. Do you remember that? And the first time you heard that, it sounded like a gimmick, a joke, it would never happen. But if you dig into our country's history, it is a deeply American idea. Certainly not mine. Thomas Paine was for it at our founding, called it the citizen's dividend. Martin Luther King fought for it in the 60s, called it the guaranteed minimum income, and it is what he was fighting for the day he was killed in 1968. 1,000 economists endorsed it, and it passed the U.S. House of Representatives twice in 1971 under Richard Nixon, the Family Assistance Plan. And then 11 years later, one state passed a dividend where now everyone in that state gets between $1,000 and $2,000 a year, no questions asked. And what state is that? Alaska. And how does Alaska pay for it? And what is the oil of the 21st century? Technology, AI, big data, self-driving cars and trucks. A study just came out that said that our data is now worth more than oil. Do you all remember getting your data check in the mail? Where did that data check go? Facebook, Amazon, Google, they got your data check. How many of you have been to Iowa 80, the biggest truck stop in the country, when you're through Davenport? Buffet apparently says that 5,000 truckers and motorists stop there every single day. My friends in California are working on trucks that can drive themselves. What is that going to mean for the people who drive a truck and stop at Iowa 80? This is the future, and we have not that much time to get it right. We have to present a vision of an economy that actually works for you all, a trickle-up economy, from our people, our families, and our communities up. Donald Trump's our president today because he said he's going to make America great again, and what did Hillary say in response in 2016? America is already great. Remember that? That did not work. We need a new response. He got the problems right, but his solutions were the opposite of what we need. His solutions were, we're going to build a wall, we're going to turn the clock back, we're going to bring the old jobs back. We have to do the opposite of these things. We have to turn the clock forward, Iowa. We have to accelerate our economy and society. We have to evolve in the way we think about work and value. And I am the ideal candidate for that job because the opposite of Donald Trump is an Asian man who likes math. Thank you, Iowa. Let's make America think harder and win this thing in 2020. Thank you all very much.
Speaking on behalf of Cory Booker, please welcome State Representative Heather Mattson.
Time to take a shot, we gonna rise up. Time to take a shot, we gonna rise up, rise up. Time to take a shot, rise up, rise up. Time to take a shot, rise up. It's time to take a shot, rise up. Take a shot, shot, shot. It's time to take a shot, time to take a shot. It's not throwing your way,
Good evening, Woodbury County Democrats. I am so excited to be here, and that's absolutely my favorite song. So it just so happens to work out so perfectly with Cory Booker, since his message is about rising up, and I'm just so glad we could marry the two of those things together tonight. So my name is State Representative Heather Mattson, and I represent Ankeny. So I'm here from Polk County tonight, and incredibly excited to be out in Northwest Iowa. I've been fortunate to meet and get to know several of our candidates, and we are really lucky to have such an amazing group of leaders who are out here in our communities working to earn our support. And I want to acknowledge all of the organizers that are working out here in Woodbury County for all the exceptionally hard-working candidates that they are here to do work for. And in particular, I want to recognize Jonah and Brandon, who are here with the Booker campaign, because they bring the hope, hype, and hustle every single day. So thank you all so very much for your work. So as I mentioned, I'm here for Cory Booker tonight, and I'm not sure how much everyone knows about him, so just by way of a little bit of background, he got his start as a tenant organizer in Newark to fight for fair housing, which led to his election to the city council, and then he went on to win the mayoral race in 2006. He has been in the U.S. Senate since 2013. Cory's known for leading efforts in the Senate on criminal justice reform, expanding economic opportunity, and equal justice. I've been privileged to get to know Cory over the last several months, and I've been struck by his thoughtfulness and his attention to detail. Sorry, I'm trying to find the exact right spot for this. Just take it off. It's a lot easier. Right. And I've noticed how often he asks Iowans for their opinions and how intently he listens to our ideas. I've realized that Cory lives the values that he espouses, that if we truly want to heal the division in our country, we must be bold on policy, but also speak with kindness. And as Cory says, radical love that seeks understanding. Cory Booker leads with passion, honesty, and a commitment to civic grace. at a time when we need to be reminded of who we can be as a country. I support Corey because he inspires me to rise to the challenges that we face as a nation. And I think he is the candidate who will inspire all Americans to believe in each other again. We have many challenges, and Corey has proposals that can make a real impact on the lives of all Americans. Given his executive experience as the mayor of Newark, Corey understands that we need to be committed to fighting for big ideas, while also recognizing that we cannot allow the perfect to be the enemy of the good when it comes to solving urgent problems, because there are too many Americans who are hurting right now. So I like to say, name an issue, and Corey has a plan. Healthcare as a human right. First and foremost, Corey will fight to ensure strong public option as we work toward the ultimate goal of universal healthcare. Strong public education, a commitment to appointing someone who has been a public school teacher as Secretary of Education. Now, wouldn't it be nice if we had that instead of Betsy DeVos? Right? Solving climate change with economic opportunities, ensuring that all policies, from trade agreements to infrastructure projects, are considered through a green lens, which he started doing as mayor. And Corey has actually been recognized by Greenpeace as a top candidate on the environment. I could talk about policy all night long. I will not subject you to those things, but I do want to spend a minute talking about an issue that really resonates with me, and that's fighting for economic security for all Americans. Corey will work to build an economy where everyone has a stake in its success. If you haven't had a chance to read his plan on opportunity and justice for workers, then I really encourage you to do that because it is incredibly thoughtful. He is committed to expanding access to joining a union and empowering workers to raise wages and to improve working conditions. But economic security and justice go much further than that. I'm sure you've all heard the statistic that about 40% of Americans can't afford a $400 emergency. And the truth is, for many Americans, it's exceptionally hard to save and often impossible to build wealth over generations. We need to talk about how there is a growing racial wealth gap in this country, and that the median white family holds nearly 10 times the wealth of the median black family. So Corey's baby bonds proposal would help low-income Americans build wealth by creating an account for each baby and depositing $1,000 at birth, and through the tax code up to $2,000 a year, depending on family income. Account holders wouldn't be able to access the accounts until age 18, and the monies can only be used for wealth-generating expenses like education and home ownership. I give these details in part because I'm a bit of a policy geek, but also because when we talk about ensuring that Americans have the tools that they need to get ahead, this is a real concrete action that will make a big difference in the lives of all those who need help getting up the ladder. But beyond all the policy, we can all agree that what Democrats want is to nominate a candidate who can defeat Donald Trump. And I agree with Corey that we do not defeat Trump by fighting on his turf. We don't defeat hate with more hate. But let's be clear, this will be a difficult election. But as I campaigned for the legislature, and have had the opportunity to meet so many Iowans, it has always been clear to me that what Iowans want more than anything is honesty and hope for a better life for themselves and their kids. We will defeat Trump when we stand strong on our issues and when we call upon each other to believe in what is possible, when we believe in each other. So Corey knows that this election is about more than one office. We don't need a savior, we need a team. He's committed to supporting Democrats up and down the ticket, and that's why I'm here tonight. We have big challenges, but we also have really big opportunities, and I want to believe in something more, and that's why I'm supporting Cory Booker. I ask you to join me in supporting Cory Booker on caucus night. Thank you so much.
Speaking on behalf of Amy Klobuchar, please welcome Minnesota State Auditor Julie Blah.
Don't want to start talking because you might be surprised, but the state auditor rarely gets walk-on music, and it's almost never Beyonce. So I'm so excited to hear this. Well, hello, Democrats. My name is Julie Blaha, and I am proud to be here to support my friend and your senator next door, Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar. Let's hear it for her. Now, you may have seen her announcement for president in the middle of the snowstorm with no gloves on. Yeah, we know in Minnesota she has grit. She's the daughter of a union teacher and a newspaperman, the first woman elected to the Senate from the state of Minnesota, and now a candidate for the President of the United States. Now, Senator Klobuchar got her start in politics when her daughter Abigail was born. She got kicked out of the hospital just 24 hours after, even though Abigail was really sick. And she refused to let that happen to other moms. So she went to the legislature, not as a politician, but as a mom, to pass one of the nation's first laws guaranteeing new moms and their babies a 48-hour hospital stay. She then ran for office and became the first woman elected Hennepin County attorney. Her reforms earned national awards, and she worked with the Innocence Project to advocate for videotaped interrogations across the country, as well as innovative eyewitness processes to protect against false identifications. Now, in the Senate, she's fighting for issues we care about here in the heartland. Infrastructure, our schools, healthcare, bringing down the cost of prescription drugs, prioritizing mental health and addiction, and closing the rural-urban divide. And when she first came to Congress, her number one ask was to be on the Senate Agriculture Committee because she understands that this country has to do more to support its farmers. That's why she has been a leader on the fight to end waivers for multi-billion-dollar oil companies. Now, Senator Klobuchar is known for getting things done. I was a math teacher before this, and also the treasurer of the Minnesota AFL-CIO. So let's take a moment. Let's hear from labor in the room one more time. So you know I like numbers. Well, here's a number that tells you just how much Senator Klobuchar can get done. She's gotten more than 100 bills signed into law since she took office. That means 100 bills that are making a difference in people's lives, like providing new funding for our infrastructure, improving school safety, increasing support for biofuels, and so much more. Despite the gridlock and grandstanding in Washington, Senator Klobuchar finds a way to fight through the politics of division and make a difference in people's lives. Now, how has she done this? She's done this by finding common ground. Instead of calling people names or spreading the blame, Senator Klobuchar is focused on getting things done, and she listens to people. She travels to every county in Minnesota every year. Now, I know we only have 87, you've got 12 more, but it was through listening to problems and ideas of her constituents that she was able to figure out what needed to be changed, and she got it done. She's someone to understand that what unites a country is so much bigger than what divides us. And she believes in bridging the river of those divides. She's not running to be president for half this country. She wants to be president for all of this country. In fact, she has a great track record of winning. And I'll tell you, when you're a first-time candidate like me, way down the ballot, I'll tell you, having somebody at the top of the ticket who can really lift a whole ticket is huge. In fact, she has never lost a single race. She has won every congressional district in Minnesota, the reddest of the red districts, purple districts, blue districts, rural districts, in all 3 statewide elections. Here's another number for you. Last year, she won 42 of the rural counties that Donald Trump took in 2016. And with Senator Klobuchar at the top of the ticket, we took back the House. In Minnesota, we flipped 2 congressional seats, and we won every single statewide election. Now, we are proud to share our senator with you, Iowa, and the rest of the country. Of course, Senator Klobuchar is no stranger to Iowa. She's been coming here for years fighting for Democrats up and down the ballot. It's no surprise that Senator Klobuchar now has more endorsements from current and former elected officials in Iowa than any other candidate in this race. Yeah, let's hear it for that. When it comes to 2020, Amy knows that the path to victory starts here in the heartland, and she can lead our Democratic ticket to a united victory. And I only have one line left, and I really wanted that music. I don't know, are you able to turn the walk-off music on just for the last line? Well, just hum along. I hope you will join me in supporting Amy for America, and together we will take back the White House. Thank you.
Speaking on behalf of Elizabeth Warren, please welcome Attorney General of Massachusetts, Maura Healey.
Hey everybody, I am so psyched to be in Iowa. I am the Massachusetts Attorney General, but I grew up in New Hampshire, so you all are first. I'm here to concede. I want to thank the Woodbury County Democrats, Jeremy, Tisha, the entire team. I spent some time earlier with Sandy O'Brien, who, like me, was once a basketball player. She says she got way too many technical fouls because she used to swear a lot, which we find ourselves doing these days, understandably. But it's been great to be on the ground here in Sioux City. I want to thank all of the hardworking teams from all of the great candidates who are running for 2020. Keep at it. This is so important. This is what democracy is all about. Congratulations to Pam. My mom was a nurse, my grandmother was a nurse, and we love nurses, and thank you for your activism. And to Steve Ward as well for congratulations to you. Look, I'm here on behalf of Elizabeth Warren because I've worked with her. I've worked with her for a long time. I was a lawyer a long time ago when I listened to her give a lecture about why so many families in this country were filing for bankruptcy. A few years later, when I was working in the Attorney General's office, and we saw the subprime lending crisis fall on this economy and people started to lose their homes, I called Elizabeth Warren to ask what to do. She helped us sue and collect money from those Wall Street banks and shut down those bad predatory practices. From the moment I met her, I knew she was a fighter. You know, later on, when I became Attorney General, I was, like her, very focused on student debt, a huge issue for so many all across this country. And she helped us, stood with us as we met students drowning in debt, veterans, single moms, often the first in their families to go to college. She was literally in the room as we were filling out affidavits for our lawsuits to challenge Betsy DeVos. Yeah, I could go on, but suffice it to say, I've come to know her and to work with her, and I believe deeply in her. I've also spent a lot of time over the last few years suing Donald Trump. And, as much as with success, but that's not what this is about, okay? We'll hold the line, us Democratic AGs, when it comes to the courthouses, okay? But this is about 2020, and that's why I am here for Elizabeth Warren. If we're going to make progress for people in this country, we need to make sure that we have allies for everyone, that no one's left behind. Allies that know how to fight, and yeah, more important than ever, allies who know how to win. Elizabeth has the vision, she's got the values, she knows that to change the status quo and to help working families here in Iowa and all across this country, we need big structural change in this country. And yeah, she's got a plan for that. Well, when we make Elizabeth Warren president, we'll have the chance to root out corruption in Washington, D.C., restructure our economy, solve the affordable housing crisis, ensure Medicaid and Medicare for all, and a Green New Deal to help save this planet. And it all starts with a wealth tax. You know our idea, 2 cents, right? You keep the first 50 million, then we'll start taking 2 cents on every dollar made after that. And what can we do with the 2 cents? You know she has the plan for it. Expand Social Security, starting with a $200 increase in everyone's check. Universal child care for every child between the ages of 0 and 5, and universal pre-K for our 3 and 4-year-olds. She's got this idea about college education, so important, making college free and increasing the Pell Grant so that anyone can get an education. Raise wages for every preschool teacher and childcare